Multiple research studies have found that many university students are commonly unaware of and seldom use effective learning techniques. Most students use techniques such as rereading, highlighting, and summarizing. However, research shows that those are not very good at helping you remember and retain information. There are actually other techniques that are more effective, and yet most students are still using these less effective techniques. There thus seems to be an inverse relationship between what research shows is most effective and what is most popular. So instead of you spending hours and hours trying to search for the right answer and wasting your study time by using these less effective study techniques, here's how to study less and remember more. Hi there, my name is Shannon and I'm a Dutch health scientist / epidemiologist living in Australia. And in this video, I'll be talking about important do's and don'ts of successful learning. I'll first go over the don'ts of successful learning, which are rereading, highlighting, and summarizing. Then I'll go over the do's of successful learning, which are space practice and retrieval practice. And finally, I'll go over some additional learning techniques that you may wish to try. Over the last 100 years, psychologists have been developing and evaluating multiple study techniques and have come up with the most effective ones. Nevertheless, some effective techniques are still underutilized, and this is probably because many teachers do not learn about them, and hence many students do not use them, despite of all the available evidence. The first less effective study technique that many students use is rereading. Rereading is one of the techniques that students most frequently report using during self-regulated study. However, one of the reasons why rereading, restudying, and reviewing are not the most effective learning strategies is because they don't involve the actual cognitive processes that exams require. On exams, you must retrieve information from memory. And unfortunately, during exams, there are no notes, lecture slides, or textbooks to consult. And even if they were, there often is not enough time to search through it efficiently. As such, the more thoroughly you have absorbed course content, and the more able you are to successfully retrieve that information during an exam, the better you are likely to do so. The second less effective technique is highlighting. When students are asked about what they do when studying, they commonly report underlining, highlighting, or otherwise marking material as they try to learn it. When I was in high school and going into my first year of university, this was definitely one of the main techniques I used. And the reason I chose this technique, and many other students do too, is because it's simple to use and it doesn't entail training. It also doesn't require much time beyond what's already required for reading the material. However, most studies have shown no benefit of highlighting above the benefit of simply reading. And from my experience when I was highlighting text, I always did bad on exams, and it's also probably the reason why I wasn't doing that well in high school. The final less effective technique is summarizing. Although I have always used this technique myself, probably because I was taught to do so when I was in primary school, evidence suggests that this method is not effective for everyone. The reason students summarize is most likely because of the vast amount of information they need to learn. And by summarizing, they can identify what is most important and how different ideas connect to one another. However, as you probably might know, summarizing takes a long time, and evidence shows that this is not effective. Nevertheless, it can be an effective learning strategy for learners who are already skilled at summarizing. However, many learners will require extensive training, which makes this strategy less feasible. According to research, the two most effective methods known are space practice and retrieval practice. But what are they and how do you use them? Let's first go over space practice, which is also known as distributed practice. This basically means that you space your learning activities out over time. So for example, you may space out your learning activities over 1 to 2 hours every day, rather than a 12-hour cramming session the day before your exam. And by doing so, evidence shows that you'll be able to learn more information and retain it longer, because during each session you can spend more time processing and integrating important concepts from a portion of the course. Moreover, by repeatedly revisiting course materials over multiple sessions, you'll be able to more effectively encode that information into long-term memory, and thus be better equipped to use that information on the next exam. So multiple practice sessions over time results in better long-term memory than a single practice session of equivalent duration, and this benefit is known as the spacing effect. So the first thing you should do is to start early and go over your core syllabus, as this usually contains all the topics and deadlines of the course. And by using this, you can make a plan of when to prepare for what topic and in which weeks you should go over that topic. It is recommended that you make sure you go over the same topic multiple times. So for instance, if you study a topic in week 1, also make sure to go over it in, for example, week 3 and week 4. And once you have your schedule and space out the topics you have to learn, you need to make sure you actually follow through with your plan. And this is the hardest part, as you will require discipline, and we all know how hard it is to start a new habit and to stick to a new plan. However, it will benefit you a lot down the road, because when the exam date arrives, you'll be better equipped to achieve the result you want. So to sum up, when using spaced practice, you should first plan a spaced learning schedule ahead of time, then spend time preparing for the course at regular periodic intervals, and last, focus on both new and old materials. The second effective technique is retrieval practice. This is also known as practice testing. This entails that instead of simply restudying, rereading, or reviewing information, which have been shown to be less effective, you read through, for example, a set of lecture slides and then try to remember what you've just learned by writing it down and checking your answer. So in essence, by following these steps, you are giving yourself a practice test. And this technique has been shown to be one of the most effective learning methods discovered to date. And the benefit is known as the testing effect. Although spaced practice and retrieval practice are the most powerful learning methods, other methods may also be helpful. And two examples are self-explanation and interleaved practice. Self-explanation can help you better understand a concept. It means that instead of sticking to the provided definition that you see in textbooks, you formulate an explanation or definition in your own words, which in turn will help you to better remember the information. The second useful technique, interleaved practice, means that you're learning two or more related concepts or skills instead of focusing on one concept or skill at a time, which is called blocking. So for example, this method could be beneficial for you when you're learning similar types of math problems, like calculating volumes of different shapes. And though it might seem harder to learn two similar concepts at the same time, it has been shown that it's more effective and better for long-term retention when the learning is more challenging. So these were the do's and don'ts of successful learning. And hopefully by now you know what not to do, like rereading, highlighting, or summarizing, as they won't help you study more effectively or efficiently. Rather, you should focus on the most effective ones, which are spaced practice and retrieval practice. And if you apply these more effective learning techniques, you will definitely see improvements not only in your learning, but also in your grades. And overall, you'll be able to study less and remember more. If you want to read more on these study techniques, I'll leave the citations of the papers I used for this video down in the description. They're very helpful and will definitely give you more insight into this topic. Anyway, if you made it this far to the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and hopefully it can help you study more effectively and efficiently in the future, and thus helps you to study less and remember more. I hope to see you next week, and remember, anything is possible.